Another day, another recap. Today I'll be showing you a crime thriller movie named Killing Them Softly. This recap will not disappoint you, and without further ado, let's get into it. The movie kicks off with a man named Frankie walking through a windy day. Another man walking 10 dogs is told off for being late. The scene jumps to an interview room where Frankie tries to get his friend Russell hired by the big man Johnny. He's not too interested in Russell and tells him to get out of his store. He tells Frankie to get someone else and starts talking about his jail years and tells him to beat it and come back Thursday. A couple days later, Thursday comes around and Frankie asks Russell if he's ready to go back. Russell refuses and says he's going to sell his dogs and buy some gear and become a dealer. He ditches the interview and Frankie just goes himself. There, he tells Johnny he will vouch for Russell. Johnny then asks if Russell can handle a card game. Frankie says they both can, but why would they want to do it? Johnny immediately gets into a backstory, saying a man named Marky was running the underground card industry. But when he saw so many people come in with plenty of money, he decides to clean up and sends 2 gunmen to rob his own joint. The games have to be shut down, and the victims hire Dylan to find out who did it. He eventually ends up at Marky's house and interrogates him. It gets violent quite quickly, and Dylan ends up giving up when he can't find the answers. With that, the games are back to usual, and the men go back to making money. But one night as the lads are playing, Marky actually confesses he robbed his players, and the men at the table give him a pass as it wasn't their money. But this opened the doors for Johnny, who says if another robbery happens, Marky will take the fall and the backlash from the community whether it's him or not. Frankie says he's in as long as Russell is with him. Frankie immediately picks up Russell and tells him the plan. The two start having delusions about upgrading their car and kicking back with their lives. Russell isn't 100% there though, and says some pretty twisted stuff about his time in prison and what happened to him. He starts ranting and babbling until the duo finally arrive at their destination. Frankie parks up the car and 2 of them chuck on some gloves, put on some masks, and carry a sawed-off shotgun. And now it's showtime. The duo walks from the side of the property and quietly sneak into the house. They open the door and make their way inside the game room and hold everyone hostage. They even manage to hold Marky at gunpoint, and he is stunned. He tells the rookie robbers what to do next. He then walks past the game tables and towards the back where the cash is. He goes to grab the money, and Frankie is starting to get terrified from the men he is holding hostage. Marky tells Russell that the men outside are going to kill him. But there is another way. Just put the gun down and walk away. He'll even deal with his friend for him. Russell thinks about it, and Frankie yells at him to hurry up. Marky reveals the suitcases and Russell goes ahead with the robbery. He checks the suitcases and sees the wads of cash inside, and Frankie threatens the men for more money. They empty the players' wallets and he collectively screams at them all. He wants them to understand if he shoots, they'll all die. They all pull out their cash and Russell collects it all and places it in the bag. Russell then jogs outside the building with the cash, and now it's Frankie's turn. He slowly walks back and then gives a little sprint when he's out of range. The duo both jump into the car, and the mission was a big success. Elsewhere, a man named Jackie drives and pulls up to a house. In the pouring rain, he walks to a car where driver is sitting inside. He tells Jackie that since Dylan wasn't available, they sent him Jackie's number instead. Turns out, Dylan isn't too well, and the duo park underneath a bridge. Driver tells Jackie that Marky's game got robbed last night by what seems to be 2 kids. Jackie tells Driver he doesn't think Marky would be dumb enough to rob himself twice. But nonetheless, he is going to speak to Marky and maybe even get the games back on as people are losing money. Driver says his committee want Jackie to rough up Marky a little bit to make sure. That night, a car drives through a dead street and parks up. Inside, Barry as well as his accomplice Steve are assigned by Jackie to rough up Marky. After a while, Marky pulls up in his car and walks towards his house. The 2 men aim their guns at him and say to get in the car. He refuses and says to shoot him instead. But he eventually listens, and they arrive at their next stop. Marky knows both the men and says he's not getting out as he did nothing wrong. They argue and argue until he finally agrees to step in the pouring rain. He tells both men and swears on everything he holds dear that this wasn't him. They whack him in the stomach, then in the face. Barry cracks him multiple times over and keeps going until Marky drops. Steve tells Marky to just tell them where the kids are and they'll leave him be. He doesn't know, and so they continue to belt him. Problematically, he greens out onto Steve, who isn't happy about that. He keeps laying into him, and they decide to just let him be. The next day, both Frankie and Russell are living the dream. They have a laugh with each other, and Russell is handed a bag. That night, Russell's friend Kenny drives through a thunderstorm with Russell and his 10 dogs. It was a disgusting experience, and so Russell tells his friend to light the car on fire. His buddy Kenny reckons he's lit hundreds of cars on fire before, but the moron manages to hit himself in the process. He tells this story to Frankie, who is having a blast. Russell, in the meantime, isn't all there. It turns out he was a little excited with his newfound fortune and takes himself to Cloud 9. Frankie tries having a conversation with him, but he keeps going into alternate dimensions and then back to Frankie. Frankie begins losing it when he realizes that Russell's friend Kenny works for Dylan. Frankie is dirty that Russell made such a big mistake and starts getting paranoid. Jackie immediately relays what he learned about the robbery to Driver. Turns out, Russell asked Teddy if he wants to go into business with him, and Teddy actually asked Jackie what he thinks he should do. Driver cannot believe how loud and dumb the robbers are, but tells Jackie he went too hard on Marky and half his body is broken and shattered. Jackie doesn't really care and says that he doesn't like to kill people close range and loves shooting from a distance. Instead, he tells Driver to grab Mickey to help him. Mickey at the airport looks like a proper mafia boss. They want to pay him $15,000 for 2 days of work. He quickly links up with Jackie and complains about the waiter and the drinks. The two start speaking with each other, and Mickey tells Jackie there's been some problems. Back at home, he got caught with a brand new shoddy he just bought. He has managed to fight it in court and say it's not his. But he tells Jackie there is a chance he can get locked up again. Even though he has a wife and kids, getting locked up caused many problems between them. His wife wanted to file for divorce, but he managed to convince her otherwise last time. But if he gets locked up this time, he's done for good. Jackie tells Mickey it's time to get down to business. There are 2 people Mickey needs to take out, and Jackie gives him the details. Later on, Jackie speaks with Kenny, who is now included in the plans. Jackie spots Marky outside the window and gets up to follow him. Kenny drives the car while Jackie sits in the back. He tells Kenny to drive slowly past Marky. When he's in range, Jackie pulls the trigger, and the first bullet shatters the window in pure perfection. Jackie keeps pressing the trigger and Marky is shot and killed. But the bullets don't stop until the clip is finally empty. Marky's car then gets smacked around by cars approaching, and he couldn't have had a more excruciating death. Jackie heads to Mickey's apartment, who refuses to stop drinking and partying. Jackie is starting to get annoyed at Mickey, who keeps talking about back-in-the-day stories and gets all emotional about them. Jackie tells him he needs him tonight, and Mickey says he can't do it. Jackie starts screaming at him, telling him to stop partying, to stop drinking, and to go to bed. Mickey starts screaming, and Jackie says he's calling him in 5 hours to do the job. Jackie quickly relays this information to Driver and says bringing Mickey was a problem. The man has done nothing in 3 days and plans to do nothing. Jackie says he's going to set up Mickey, as he's in probation and was not supposed to travel. This should get his bail revoked and get him out of the way and to jail. In the meantime, Russell is off his head and walks on the street. Police speak to each other as they watch him go towards his locker. One officer tells all units to move in, and the second Russell pops open his locker and grabs stuff. Cops come racing inside, and Russell is immediately arrested. They search him and place him into cuffs as they read him his rights. Quickly enough, Frankie hears about what happened and speaks to Johnny about it. He feels pretty bad about Russell and voices his feelings. Johnny tells him to relax, and the scene cuts to a man losing it, saying to get off his block. Gunshots are heard in the background, and Jackie walks into a pub and sits next to Frankie. But Frankie is clueless, not realizing Jackie is not his friend. Jackie then says he's been looking for Frankie and was told he hangs around the pub. Frankie gets scared immediately and wants to know why he's looking for him. Jackie explains that he heard things from the street, and Frankie needs to learn to cover his ass. Jackie asks him where Johnny is going to be tomorrow night, and once Frankie realizes that Jackie is in leagues with Dylan, he almost cries and says he has no clue where Johnny is. Jackie goes to head off and Frankie stops him. He says he might know, but Jackie says he is showing him mercy and giving him a choice. He knows that Johnny would give Frankie up in a heartbeat. Frankie is having quite some difficulties saying the location of his friend. Eventually, though, he gives in and has to be there with Jackie when they find Johnny. When time finally comes, Frankie drives Jackie to Johnny's whereabouts. He tries to convince him otherwise, but Jackie is not falling for it. Not too long after that, Johnny arrives. Jackie is happy to see and waits. When Johnny gets out of his car, he opens the passenger seat and a woman walks off with him. Jackie takes the keys out of the car, and he is very fortunate to see Johnny is not even going inside the house. Jackie holds his gun, and when the opportunity presents itself, Johnny coughs his lungs out and Jackie approaches him. He sees him injured on the ground and he finishes him off. Quickly enough, Frankie takes off and the sirens are heard from a distance. Jackie tells Frankie to slow down or the cops are going to notice them. He does not listen and keeps flooring until he pulls to the side of the road and they switch seats. They eventually arrive in a car park, and Frankie says he's going to wipe the car down, jump into another vehicle, and escape. Jackie has had enough. He wipes the entire car for fingerprints and simply walks off. He drives away as if nothing ever happened. We then see the remains of both Johnny and Frankie. The bodies are put away and the scene cuts to a cinematic masterpiece of Jackie walking through the streets. He sits down with Driver and watches Barack Obama address the nation. Driver is relieved that there is finally peace at long last. Jackie tells Driver he doesn't want any favors, just cash, and heads off to the bathroom to count it. When he returns, he says that Driver paid him $10,000 apiece but was supposed to get $15,000. Driver argues that Dylan charges $10,000 per person, but Jackie says that Mickey was hired to take out 2 people for $30,000, and now that he's locked up, he wants $45,000. Driver wants to call Dylan but discovers he died in the morning. With no backup or backbone, Jackie presses Driver and sure enough gets his money.